are here on a Sunday night, kind of in the middle of the day when it comes to um, NCAA March Madness. And we are well on our way to the Sweet 16. Sweets, what's your thoughts so far this weekend? Let's start with the East Regional and what's been accomplished by the teams in that region so far. What's your thoughts on the East?
Yeah, Duke as the number one seed looked awful on Thursday against Siena. They were down big in the first half. They came back and won the game, but didn't look good at all. 6 point win, and people were wondering whether this freshman class, had the chops to go further. They did play better against TCU, beat TCU by uh, a good margin. Or wait, yeah. Had a great game against TCU. Beat them by 23. For me, Duke is still the team to beat. St. John's lost or beat Kansas on a buzzer beater by Dylan Darling. His only points of the game. Literally, all dropped through the net as the time expired. So that will put Patino against Shire in the Sweet 16. Who do you like there, Kev?
Well, obviously, I like Duke in that matchup, but I do think St. John's can play them well. Duke did play much better yesterday, and really it was in the second half of that game. The game was tight at half. I think Duke led by 4. TCU actually got the lead early in the second half in that game, and then Duke took over. They really shut them down defensively while they scored well in the second half and just dominated that second half. Duke shot 55% from the field, had 4 players in double figures, led by Cam Boozer, and just played really well down the stretch of that. So I like Duke based on their overall ability to score with their team. St. John's in Kansas today was just a slugfest. 8 minutes to go in the game. Kansas only has 40 points, and they're down 14 points at the time. And then in the last 8 minutes, they scored 22 points, uh, 25 points actually, in that 8 minute stretch. Definitely a different pace to their play and got that game tied. When you look at the game, and this is what Duke is going to have to be ready for in the Sweet 16 matchup. St. John's forced 16 turnovers in this game while they only committed 8 today. So that to me was the difference in the game. And they were really strong defensively, forced turnovers. And so Duke will have to be ready for that. St. John's will try to keep the game in the 60s, be very aggressive defensively. They'll rebound hard. They're a tough team. Patino coaches a lot of toughness with his team. But I think overall, Duke has too much talent. Ejiofor had 18 today, and Hopkins had 18. The interesting thing, too, I guess let me add this, too, from a Kansas standpoint. Darren Peterson obviously played his last game for Kansas today. He's been somebody all year that has played in the 20 minutes. He had some injuries. So I think it'll be interesting there. I think Kansas is probably, while he's a great talent, he's a great player, and he's going to be a good NBA player. I think Kansas is probably ready to move on from that situation. I think having to manage him with the personalities in that team. But you can obviously tell the frustration in Bill Self's face at the end of the game. They did a really good job of not committing fouls in the second half. They had 3 to give, and they did that, got it down to 4 seconds. But then they let Darling get the ball and go straight to the rack. Nobody helped off of him. He goes from the half court all the way to the rack and gets a layup in a 4 second period. Just something that can't happen. You
You
got to help make him kick it and somebody shoot the three.
you have got to
But they
have your
didn't.
man stand underneath the basket and wait for somebody to come and make them dish or go over the. You just cannot you cannot give the front of the rim wide open to a guy. It was just. I mean, it was just awful.
Yeah, help's got to come from the wing around the free throw line, top of the key area, especially when he turned the corner so close there to half court. You had plenty of time to help, in that top of the key area, make him kick it, and somebody hit a three or hit a perimeter shot, but they let him get all the way to the rim. No high ball screen, nothing. So very tough there. Going back to Duke and TCU, I mentioned Duke 55% from the field yesterday. They also held TCU to 33%, and much of that in the second half. They held them in the 20% range in the second half. So, really impressive outing by Duke and the way that they played yesterday. I think they'll have too much for St. John's. It'll be interesting. The line will probably be around 4 or 5 points. But I like Duke in that game, and a game that I think will be a very intensely played game. Let me say that. But after watching St. John's a good bit today, um, I think Duke wins that game by 10 plus.
I, I think they're a better team. That they're more talented than St. John's. St. John's just, there's something to be said about winning basketball games, and winning a lot of them. St. John's has lost one game in 2026. So they've played very well the second half of the season. And so if that comes down to the end of the game, St. John's has shown that they have what it takes, that they can pull out a win against a Duke team. I don't think they will. My biggest thing right now is the Michigan State squad, led by Jeremy Fears. He had 16 assists yesterday, the most, and he had the most back-to-back assists in a tournament game by a Big Ten player ever. And we talked about it before. When you get Tom Izzo with a stud point guard, that usually ends with a deep run. So if it comes down to Michigan State playing Duke or St. John's, that'll be a hell of a game. Looking forward to some good basketball in both those spots there. We lost Kev for a second here, so I'll keep rolling. Also wanted to talk about Michigan State and the possibility of them playing UConn tomorrow, or the winner of the UConn game, which UConn is playing. UConn's playing UCLA at 8:45 Eastern tonight. So the winner of that game will play Michigan State. Should be a barn burner there too. We're just looking for some good basketball. Going to the Southeast region, number one Florida is playing Iowa right now. That game is currently in progress. Let me see if I can get you the score of that game. Don't have an updated score yet, but we'll get you one. Looks like Kev's coming back on right now. Kev, we finished up the East region.
We still have tonight with UCLA, UConn, and Michigan State.
Yeah.
There. So I think I would not. UCLA's played really well. I would not be surprised if they upset UConn tonight. And on the other side of that, I like Michigan State, regardless of who comes out of that. Fears had 17 assists. I think he's tied the first 2 rounds of the tournament. He's tied with the most assists in NCAA history in 2 rounds. Maybe it's 27, something like that. Yeah. But he has done that, so I expect him to play well again.
We've talked about before, when Izzo has a stud point guard, he usually makes a deep run. So it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world for me to see Michigan State beat a UConn or UCLA and then beat a Duke or St. John's as well. Michigan State is that good, and like I said, when Izzo has a point guard, the magic happens. So something to watch there.
So if we do go from there to the South region, which right now you have Iowa and Florida playing, it's a 2-point game. Iowa's ahead 31-29. Now they've been ahead a large part of this first half, and they had a large lead. Florida's kind of came back to cut this basically to 2 points. It's a 2-point game, so 46 seconds to go in the half, could end up tied. So the second half is pretty much an even game. And then you have yesterday, maybe the game of the tournament. We had a couple of games that could be game of the tournament. Nebraska and Vanderbilt yesterday, 74-72, and a heck of a finish. And then on the other side of the bracket, you had really that's where the seeds prevailed. Houston, dominant win over Texas A&M, 88-57, and Illinois, a dominant win over Virginia Commonwealth, 76-55 to set up a 2-3 there. But your thoughts on that Nebraska Vanderbilt game yesterday?
Fantastic game. Nebraska just fought hard the whole game. Kind of neat to see Hoiberg get to coach his son and for his son to be an integral part of that team. Not the leading scorer or anything, but you can tell that kid is the grit of the team. Tough kid. Sticks his nose in there. Took a couple elbows to the head yesterday. Just a tough kid. And can't say enough about their shooting too with Sanford and was it Prager? Was that the kid's name? Just fantastic shooting and made the shots when they had to make them. Nebraska's their first Sweet 16 in program history. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and really it's their win on Thursday was their first ever NCAA tournament win. So they've stacked 2 wins in the tournament that they have never won. And so, yes, they shot 56% from the field yesterday, 47 from 3. You had Sanford had 15 points. Again, you had four guys in double figures here. Sanford had 15 points. Prager had 15 points. Mast had 13. Bayuka Finessel had 12. And again, when you look at their 3-point shooting, 2 of 2, 3 of 6, 3 of 6, and Prager was 1 of 3, but 9 out of 19 from 3. That's pretty efficient. And I think that's just the story of this Nebraska team is how efficient they are offensively. They're a very fun team to watch. Hoiberg, when he was at Iowa State, very much similar. He does a great job with coaching offense, spreading the floor, ball movement, getting shots, and shooting the threes well. Again, they were 56% from the game. Vanderbilt was 41% from the game. The thing that kept Vanderbilt in the game, again, they won the turnover battle. Nebraska had 12, which isn't a lot in a game, but Vanderbilt only had 8. So they played very well on the offensive end there. And then rebounds were pretty much even, 31-31. But certainly fun to watch this game. 2 good teams, 2 well-coached teams. I think both these coaches are, some of the better coaches in the NCAA. And again, both their teams played very well. Vandy had a shot at the end and didn't hit it. Again, just a fun game to watch. How do you think that Nebraska will stack up against Florida?
Nebraska plays very, very smart basketball. They space well. They move the ball well. They space well and get a lot of open shots. Hoiberg's able to penetrate and kick a lot. And when he's able to beat his guy off the dribble and somebody has to drop off to help, that opens up one of their other guys for 3, and those guys can stroke it. So, that's the key there is they're going to have to keep Hoiberg from penetrating and dishing. But I think Nebraska can hang with Florida. And Florida hasn't won anything yet because they're down to Iowa right now. So we may be looking at a Nebraska-Iowa game, which would, old rivalry from back in the day, neighboring states there. So good stuff. I would really I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska beat either of those teams. Honestly, Nebraska plays smart, solid ball. If they're making their shots, they can beat anybody.
They can, and I do think they'll hit their shots. Again, I think the way that they play offensively, they will get good looks. And you're right. Iowa still got something to say in this Florida game up 2.5. We'll see how it plays out. Iowa's played well, and they're in the Big Ten. I would say that the one thing to me that has been visible in this tournament, I was just going to talk about who the conference winners are. To me, so far, the Big Ten is the definite conference winner. Their teams have performed well. Illinois is in the Sweet 16. Michigan State's in the Sweet 16. Nebraska's in the Sweet 16. Michigan is in the Sweet 16. So Big Ten is definitely performed well, and Nebraska was in that league, and they finished in the top, couple of teams in that league. So that speaks to what they can do in that matchup. So I think it would be a very interesting game if they played Florida because the tempo of the game would be there would be an up tempo game that I would expect to get into the 80s. Contrasting styles from the standpoint of Florida's bigs and how Nebraska plays with the perimeter players. But one thing that's kind of went unsaid about Nebraska this season, they do defend well. And again, yesterday they kept Vandy as far as just from a shooting percentage. Vandy only shot 41%. Nebraska is not just a one-trick pony that scores. So I think that matchup in the Sweet 16. Um, I think obviously if they play Iowa, they're going to be favored. But if they play Florida, they might be an 8-10 point underdog, and I think that would be one that I might take Nebraska and take the points. I might think that they might not win, much like we thought on Arkansas and High Point, but I'm not sure that game won't be back and forth the whole way, and Nebraska keep the game within 4 to 6.
Looks like Tennessee and Virginia are tied up at 68.
We knew that game would get tight.
Yep.
It's going to be a battle. How much time is left in that one?
It's about 4 minutes.
Let's talk Illinois and Houston, and then let's come back to that Tennessee-Virginia game. What's your thoughts on Illinois-Houston? Both teams looked dominant yesterday. Houston, 30-point win over A&M. They've looked really good in their 2 games. And honestly, Illinois has 2. Illinois, 20-point win yesterday over Virginia Commonwealth.
Yeah, Houston. How many days didn't they score like 80-something yesterday?
Yeah,
if Houston scoring 88-point, teams are in trouble because they're not going to give up 88.
No.
So they've been fantastic so far this term. And I thought they'd beat Texas A&M, but I didn't think they'd beat them like they did. You can't say enough about Kelvin Sampson coach teams. They're always tough. They're always going to be in your shorts defensively, and they're going to make you earn it. That being said, Illinois played fantastic, and as their record showed, 3rd seed out of the best conference in the country, should be a really good game. I still like Houston in that one. I just, I really like Houston to go deep in this, and like I said, if they score 88 points a game, they're going to be tough to beat because they're not going to give up 88.
I would agree, and in this matchup, it is. Both teams have won big in both games. They both won by 30 in game 1. Yesterday, Houston won by 30. Illinois won by 20. Flagler for Illinois. You got 2 potential lottery picks as freshmen in this game, with Flagler for Illinois. He's a really good perimeter shooter. Was not highly. He was a 3-4 star type. In basketball is a sport that you usually don't see guys really, really outplay their rankings. But he was not a top 100 kid, and he's obviously performed very well. And again, will likely be a lottery pick when the draft rolls around. And then for Houston, you have Flemings, who has been a top 10 talent from when he was recruited. And he's performed well this year too, and probably their best scorer. So good chance. Not a good chance. He will be a lottery pick. So you got 2 freshman lottery picks in this matchup. I like Houston in the matchup, but Illinois has been a team this year that's won a lot of games and been very competitive again in a tough league. Finished in the top 2-3 teams in that league, and was right around the top of the league the whole year. Almost pulled off a win at Michigan State, which is a tough place to play. Led that whole game, and Michigan State tied it and got it in overtime. So I think it'll be a very competitive game. Brad Underwood's a good coach, in my opinion. He's kind of underrated. Sampson, I love what he does. Both those guys will have their teams prepared, and both those coaches thrive on toughness. So you will have a battle when it comes to just mental toughness in that game with Illinois and Houston, because both coaches, again, they pride themselves on toughness. Neither coach is going to want to give an inch in that game. So that should be interesting. Tennessee, Virginia looks like it's 2:39 to go. Tennessee's up 2. This one's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah. And
Um,
Iowa and Florida went into the half. Iowa up 33-31. Very low scoring half for Florida. They're playing Iowa style basketball right now. I can't imagine Iowa's coach he's got to be very pleased going into halftime. Yeah, if Florida only scores 62 points, they're in trouble. Florida needs to pick up the pace offensively in the second half. And I didn't watch the game, so I'm not sure what's going on, but they're obviously not hitting shots. They only scored 31 points. So something to look for there. And this Tennessee Virginia game will probably end while we're on the air here. So we'll keep coming back to that. What are your thoughts on Houston, Illinois, Kev? Who do you like in that matchup?
I like Houston, but I think, like I said, I think it'll be a very tough, hard-fought game with base. Again, just like I said, I think you have Flemings and Wagner. Both guys can score. Freshmen, and I think both teams will play defense and be built on toughness. I think the game probably is played in the 70s. I think Houston will win just because I think they have more top end talent, more overall talent to score. Um, they have a point guard that played in the national championship game last year. He came back this year. Um, and Emmanuel, Uzon, and then you have Sharp. He's been around. So Cenac in the middle is a good player, and then Fleming's their talented freshman. So I like them to get the game over Illinois. But again, Illinois, they're a good team. Wagler, if he scores, he scored 14 yesterday. Uh, Ivasic had 14. They're very balanced. Markovic only had 7 yesterday, but he's been good for them this year. And then again, Boswell, their point guard at Illinois, is a tough guy too. So um, it'll be a tough matchup. I would predict Houston by about 6 to 8. I think they have more ability to score top end, and again, defensively, both teams will fight each other tooth and nail. You mentioned Florida. Florida ended the half with 31. The first 13 minutes of the half, they had 13 points, and so the last 8 minutes they were able to score 18. So it'll be interesting to watch this second half to see if Iowa can continue to contain Florida offensively.
All right, jumping into the Midwest region, had Michigan laid the wood to St. Louis yesterday, 95-72 to advance. They'll play the winner of the Alabama Texas Tech game tonight, I believe. That's right.
Yes.
That should be a good matchup there. Both teams are missing star players. Alabama obviously missing Aiden Holloway, who is out with weed issues right now, and
What they call it, smoking.
Tech's missing JT Toppin, who's their best player, averaging 22 and 11. So but both these teams, the winner advances to play Michigan, and I'll be honest with you, I don't like either team against Michigan in that matchup. Michigan size wise is just, I think, too much for either of those teams, and I think will cause problems for either team that plays in there. The better matchup, I think, will be Iowa State versus the Tennessee Virginia winner. That should be a really good matchup. Either team who wins that game, Iowa State Tennessee will be a fantastic game.
Yeah, I think that one could be coming back to Michigan. Michigan looked outstanding yesterday against St. Louis, who's St. Louis was a quality team this year. Michigan had all 5 starters in double digits. Obviously, Lindenborg, their big guy, who's very skilled, was their leader yesterday with 25 points on 13 field goal attempts. And then they had Johnson with 15, Mara with 16, Cadu with 12, Burnett with 11. Michigan looked good. I would, if I were going to say who do I think it's looked the best in these first 2 rounds. Again, part of this is based on who they played. I think St. Louis is a competitive team. I might say Michigan has looked the best in that game yesterday. 56% from the field, 48% from 3, hit 11 3-pointers. yesterday. I mean, that's just really skilled basketball played at a high level. Um, I think that they're just were really, really good, and so I like Michigan to continue to advance. Only 9 turnovers in that game yesterday. So I'm like you. I don't think Alabama or Tech can win this game against Michigan. I, the interesting thing tonight in this Alabama Tech game, Tech is a 1.5 point favorite without Toppet, and he to me, without Toppins, he's the big. I mean, he was the Big 12 Player of the Year last year.
Yeah.
So when you look at both teams having players out, he's definitely the bigger miss in this game when you compare him to Smoke Holloway. And we just call him Smoke. I mean, why not? 2 pounds of weed you're caught with. So, he makes Cheech and Chong proud. Him and he can definitely hang with that. And he's a good shooter, but Alabama's. I really think Alabama probably beats Tech tonight. I was kind of surprised to see Tech as a 1.5 point favorite. Now, again, Tech has some really good wins. And again, their win the other night was a good win over Akron. They were dominant in that game. And they won at Iowa State without Toppins. So, again, they have some good wins. So you cannot – Grant McCaskill is one of the best coaches in college basketball. Not totally known. I think this is his 3rd year at Tech, and he had him in the Elite Eight last year. So you cannot count him out in this game. But I would give Bama the slight edge tonight, but I don't think either one of those teams. I think Michigan beats either team by 10 in that matchup.
Yeah, I like Michigan in against either of those teams as well. Iowa State, they looked fantastic in both games today. Tamina Lipsey had 26 points, 10 assists in a rout over Kentucky. Milan Momcilovic had 20 points and shot 49.6 from 3-point range. When he's shooting like that from three, and Lipsey's scoring and dealing like that, Iowa State's a tough out. Playing at their best against Virginia or Tennessee, I like Ohio or Iowa State against either of those teams. And I'm gonna tell you what, if Iowa State and Michigan play in that Elite Eight game, that's gonna be a heck of a fun game. Michigan's got them size wise, but Iowa State can play basketball. That's a good solid squad right there.
It is, and T.G. Otzenberger, he's a great coach. Again, every year he has Iowa State at some point in the season ranked in the top 10. They talked about him today about his style. He practices at 6 in the morning. Kind of, that's old school John Chaney when he was at Temple. That was his approach. The game today, you had Kentucky, the $22 million NIL team against the team that, again, Otzenberger, he spoke clearly about he wants guys that are tough and willing to practice that early. So I'm not sure he's out searching for those guys wanting $3 and $4 million a year. We certainly know Iowa State's NIL is nothing compared to Kentucky. Lipsey is an outstanding point guard, probably the most unsung point guard in the country. Again, 10 assists today, 26 points, heck of a game. And, again, defensively, Iowa State's a lot like Houston. They are going to guard, and they're going to lock people down. So, I really like them to advance regardless if they play Virginia or Tennessee to that next round. I like Iowa State a lot. When I saw the spread this morning in that Iowa State-Kentucky game was 5.5, and honestly, I think I saw it yesterday. I think I put it in the group text. If you want to win, there you go. I just didn't think, Kentucky's not been a team all year that played with a lot of mental toughness. And, when they played against a good team that was willing to guard and really get after you, they just didn't answer the moment. And it certainly was that way today as Iowa State just, played them tough and won. Tennessee and Virginia, a little different, though. Both those teams will guard. They both play with toughness. So I think, either one of those teams when they play Iowa State. Whoever wins in that Virginia Tennessee game, you will see toughness on both sides in that game. I just think Iowa State with Lipsey as the point guard, I think they're just a little better team because I think they'll execute a little better.
I,
But
I agree with that.
it will be a heck of a competitive game. It won't be a game like today where Kentucky basically that second half they just faded. Iowa State just got in their dish and took them away. And Otzenberger mentioned it after the game and about the defense. Basically caused Kentucky to wilt. Go ahead there.
No, no, I was going to say, it'll be a fantastic game. I'm obviously looking for Tennessee. I want Tennessee to win because if you guys don't know, my wife is a Tennessee alum, and my in-laws are volunteers. So that just makes my life easier if they win, especially because I picked them to beat Virginia. So if they don't win, I will be the mush and the reason why they lost. Not because they didn't make shots or play defense or any of that. It was because I picked them. So we're hoping that Tennessee can hold on here. It looks like they're up two with about 25 seconds or so left.
Yeah,
Um,
it's going to be an interesting finish.
uh, so and then we've got Utah State is down 8-12 to Arizona. Uh, Another game that Utah State can hang around with Arizona. I don't expect them to beat them, but I expect them to be competitive with Arizona.
Yes, that would be moving over to the West, where you have the Arizona winner, Arizona Utah State winner will face Arkansas, and you know I've had other people ahead of him as freshmen, but I'm ready to move Darius Acuff to the best freshman in the country. I'm tired. I mean, It's crazy to think anybody else is better than that guy. 36 points yesterday on 22 shots. He doesn't turn the ball over. He plays a large number of minutes. Ball's in his hand. He's always in control. He was so good down the stretch in a game that was tied at 83 apiece,
Yeah,
and it was anybody's game.
yeah,
And he scored down the stretch and
and
got the shots that they wanted, and Arkansas got the win. But go ahead.
that's right. No, that's what we said to begin the tournament. I said, listen, these teams that got stud players, the Devanchas, the A Cuffs, kids like that, the Boozers. You got one kid like that on your team, that's enough to win this tournament if he gets hot. One stud player can carry you. It's happened countless times over the years, and A Cuff can certainly do that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Arkansas beat if Arizona ends up getting past them, past Utah State, if Arkansas beat Arizona. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I would love to see that matchup simply because Arizona does play up tempo. Arkansas scored 94 yesterday, and they'll go up and down. In that High Point game, Nebraska, Vandy, High Point, Arkansas, two of the better games in the tournament. Just very good, free flowing games. And I think you would see the same in Arkansas and Arizona. Both teams are going to go up and down. The one thing Arkansas, in my opinion, gosh, if they guarded just a little bit,
Yeah,
they could be a threat to win this thing.
yeah.
Uh,
And it, it's defense isn't about ability. Defense is about desire. Okay, I played high school basketball. I was not, but you know, you can be a good defender if you want to defend. You have to
correct.
want to defend, and
Yes.
it drives me nuts to see these unbelievably talented basketball players who can score 40 but can't cover anybody. And I'm like, no, you can. You obviously can. If you can score 40, you can D somebody up. You just don't. And if I was a coach, that would drive me nuts. I know that the NBA is a no defense league anymore, but you still got to play a little bit. And like you said, if Arkansas defended, well, they can still win this thing. I mean, they can win the
Yeah.
whole tournament if they played a little defense and Acuff gets hot. I mean, Calipari can coach. I know a lot of people thinks he's washed up and whatever. Dude still knows basketball. Okay, he's a winner. He's going to recruit well. He's going to be there too. He will always be there come March. Um, got to tip your cap to him.
And he gets his guys to play well with confidence. I mean, He's very much a player's coach. You know, we talk about Acuff, and he is outstanding. But down the stretch, Trevin Brazile has played really well
That's
for
right.
Arkansas too. And again, Billy Richmond, Malik Thomas, he definitely gets those guys to play well and with confidence on the offensive end. Totally agree with you about defense. Defense is a lot of effort, especially a lot of these guys are good athletes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so there's just no reason that they don't. Um, I played for a coach that we wore defense dominates on the shirt, and he told us you can rest on the offensive end, but if you don't play defense, you won't play. And I worked for a coach that had the three Ds with defense, discipline, and dedication. And so, you know, it's kind of hard for me to sometimes watch these games when defense is not a priority. Anyhow,
There
that's
was a
kind of
lot of sloppy basketball today too. I mean, Tennessee, Virginia was sloppy in the first half. St. John's, Kansas was sloppy as hell. What was the other game I was watching that was just horribly sloppy? It
Kansas
was,
and St. John's was sloppy. It was, but I will say, you know, staying on the defensive theme, some of that was because both those teams were laying it out there defensively. St. John's is probably the best defensive team I've seen in the tournament. We talk about Houston; they're always good defensively, but St. John's defense is definitely their trademark. The way that they play. So I give that game was a sloppy game, especially in the first half. The last, you know, 5 minutes was more free flowing, but again, some of that I give credit to the defense. Tennessee's up four with 13 to go. Virginia has the ball. Crazy things could happen, but actually they're up six now. So it looks like Tennessee's probably going to hold on to this game.
I don't
And the
hear my
game has
wife
been really
yelling
tight.
one way or another, so that means
Be a
either
big
she's
win.
got it in hand, she's extremely nervous, or she passed out.
It'll be a big win for Tennessee here. Nate Amott, 16 points in this game. They're a
It'll,
freshman.
it'll be
Gillespie's got 19. Boswell's got 13. Go ahead.
won't that be like the fourth or fifth straight Sweet 16 Tennessee's been to?
You know, they've been in the hunt because they've also been in the hunt for Final Fours. They played Houston last year in I think it was the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. So, yeah, you know, Rick Barnes can coach. I think, you know, Texas, one of the biggest mistakes they made was, you know, they reached a point. Barnes did get them to the Final Four, and they had a lot of good teams. And they had Durant, T.J. Ford, and they had some really good years. And their alumni wanted them to get over the hump and get a championship. And you know, again, I sometimes if you got a coach that's winning, the biggest mistake you can make is create some uncomfortness and make him feel like he needs to go somewhere else, which is what happened. And he went to Tennessee to kind of get out from under the noise there. And I mean, all he's done at Tennessee is do what he does. He consistently
46
wins games.
Sweet 16s.
Yeah,
And now listen, Sean Miller's got Texas in the Sweet 16 too, so they
he does.
they're back to where Barnes could have had them anyway. So it worked out for both teams.
It
But
did, but Texas had some lean years. It was
yeah,
shocking.
no, they did for sure. And that's they claim they weren't a basketball school then, but Texas is an everything school because they got the money to be an everything school.
And they also have the talent in that state. Texas has become one of the better high school basketball states as far as talent.
Yep.
Uh, so again, so staying in that Midwest, which we've talked about, Arizona. Let's talk Texas. So we in the other matchup on the in the West, we actually have our Sweet 16 matchup with Texas and Purdue. You mentioned Texas winning, beating Gonzaga by 6 in a game that they led most of the way. Purdue and Miami today. Purdue trailed at half by 2, led most of the second half. It's a 4-point game with about a minute to go. Purdue ended up winning by 10. So yeah, Braden Smith, the NCAA all-time assist leader, and Texas playing against each other. Matt Painter is the coach of Purdue. So that'll be a good matchup. Purdue and Texas.
Should be a really good game, and Purdue will be favored. but probably not by much. And Texas is an 11 seed, but you know what, they're hot at the right time. I mean, they won 3 games in 5 days, which is a tall task. Because they had to travel. They found out Sunday night where they were going, had to get there Sunday night, to play on Tuesday. One Tuesday had to, fly out to get to the different venue on Thursday, play Thursday, Saturday, and win. So, big wins by Texas. And if they beat Purdue, and it wouldn't surprise me, they could beat an Arizona or an Arkansas too. I don't think anybody in this region is unbeatable. I know that you've got Arizona. I think you said you've got Arizona. You like them to win it all, and it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they did. But it wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas beat them, or Purdue beat them, or Texas beat them as well. I just, I think there's a lot of parity in the region, and just my thoughts on it. What do you think about the region as a whole?
Yeah. So again, Texas had two really good wins, beating BYU and beating Gonzaga. They came into the tournament. They lost to Oklahoma and had a couple losses in the last couple weeks of the SEC. So I was not high on them. I honestly thought BYU would get them.
So
And but again, they've played well. Sean Miller is a good coach. He proved that when he was at Arizona. He hasn't playing well. And again, good coaches get their teams to play well in the tournament. So I think I think you've got 3 teams that can win this region. I do think that there's a lot of balance in it. And the 3, I think Purdue, Arkansas, Arizona are your 3 that I think could win it. Even though Sean Miller's done a good job, I don't think they had the firepower to win 2 more games. Could they beat Purdue? Yes, they could. They could upset a Purdue, but I don't think the likelihood of them winning 2 more in this region. I mean, anything can happen. We've seen it in college hoops, and again, you take it one game at a time. Anything can happen. But I like the Arkansas Arizona winner to come out of this region. That being said, man, you can't. Braden Smith is a senior point guard. Again, the all-time NCAA assist leader. You cannot take that lightly. You put him in an open court game against Arizona. Could Purdue win? They could, and I think that the region offers some really good matchups in the Sweet 16 and on. I think Purdue Texas will be a really good matchup. Arkansas Arizona will be a good matchup, and whoever wins out of those games will be a good matchup. So if you just want to watch good college basketball, I think this West region is definitely one that you would want to watch.
Jumping around, Iowa's up 7 on Florida right now, 44-37, with 15:47 left in the second half there. Arizona's up 3 over Utah State with about 8 minutes left in the first half. So low scoring game out there. Utah State keeping it close.
I will tell you, Iowa's controlled the game in this Florida game so far. I've liked Florida a lot this year. I kind of stepped back a little bit in how they entered the tournament, the way they played against Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament. I still think they're capable of beating anybody and winning it if things go their way. But that being said, they do not want to get into the last 8 minutes of this game and be behind Iowa, even if it's 3 to 5 point game, because Iowa plays very smart. They will control the pace, and that's kind of what they've done. We're looking at 5 minutes into the second half. Florida's only scored 6 points, so kind of like they started the first half. Started very slow, so they better obviously you can get points off your defense. They better get some points off their defense and get some transition baskets, and if not, they're going to be. You don't want, like I said, you don't want to be down the stretch of this game trailing. That could be like Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament, and Florida could get knocked off tonight. That would be an interesting if Florida were to get knocked off. Nebraska and Iowa could be interesting. Nebraska, period, at that point could be interesting, because if Florida gets knocked off, I would put Nebraska in the Elite Eight, and that could be. You could have Nebraska, Illinois, Nebraska, Houston. I would take Houston, but it could be interesting.
Yeah, that's a tough bracket right there because there's there's some teams that'll D up in that bracket.
So if you were going to take, who would you go Final Four right now? What would be your Final Four picks that you would go with right now?
Well, I mean, I would have said Florida, um, and I'll still take them right now. So I'll still take Florida. I like Florida. I like let's see. Who do you got coming out of that region? Let's break them down together.
Okay, so I like Houston, and coming into the tournament, I liked Florida before the conference tournaments, but I kind of the way that some things down the stretch there, I like Houston. Again, there's just not a lot of consistency, and in a rematch in the national championship game, um, I like Houston, but I want that game. When I say that, I want to see that game. I want to see Florida and Houston
Yeah,
because I want to see that's a good game. Either team
great
could
matchup.
win.
That's a great matchup, and Florida's down right now, but Golden's a hell of a coach, and
Yes,
he'll get them toned down and where they need to be. Now they need to go out and perform and do the job, but it's not a time for Florida fans to panic. Golden is one of those mid-major coaches that a team took a chance and hit big on. Um, there's another SEC team that needs to do something similar. Um,
yeah, that's the Will Wade effect there, though. That's where he's going.
yeah,
So if we go the
hold on,
South,
wait. You just said something that kind of I want to be sure I heard you correctly. You said that's where Wade is going. So you think Wade will be LSU's coach next year?
I think so.
Do you?
I don't think they make a change unless that look. That's who the money people want. They like him.
That is true. The governor likes him.
So
I mean, he's the president likes him. He's the babe, the boy. But
I'm not saying he'd be my choice, but I
yeah,
think that's
I'm and that's what and that's the whole thing with me is we so Kevin and I and DMAC we're on a couple of sports forum boards. One is On3, another one is 24/7. Where you're talking team specific sports. So we're on the LSU side, obviously, and there's been a lot of talk about McMahon and the job that he's done or not done in Baton Rouge, and a lot of talk about replacing him. A lot of people want to replace him with Will Wade, who was at LSU before and unceremoniously was forced to leave for making some damn strong offers or strong gas offers, I think, right? Strong gas offers. And he may come back. My thing is, don't let me lie to you. I don't watch a ton of LSU basketball because they haven't been a lot of fun to watch. So I don't know if there's a better coach out there for them. Obviously, what he did before, would that be good enough now? Yeah, I mean, at least we were competitive with Wade, but I don't know that he is the coach for the long run. I don't know that he can build a program and starting from scratch where LSU basically is right now and build them up to where they're consistently competing in the SEC. What are your thoughts on that, Kev?
so. I think he's a smart guy that's very flamboyant, and players love him. And he gets his players to play hard, and again, he gets his players to play with a lot of confidence. That being said, I am not that high on him just straight from an X's and O's guy. And that is more on his defense and how he plays defense. To me, he tries to gimmick his way defensively. He runs a lot of like half court traps and things like that. And look, that's okay if you're good at it. But
Yeah.
he's usually giving ground trying to play with the shot clock. Well, when you play good teams that run good offense, they will eat that up. And that's kind of what's happened in the past with him. He's much better than what they've got. He'll get players. So all that I give him in that. And look, the fans will like him. He'll speak. He'll say things. He's very brash. Um, they talk about swag. He definitely is a coach that will bring the swag, and he has 100% of it. So there's that. But I mean, I would rather have like a Petway from Kennesaw State, Hodgson that was at South Florida. Looks like he's going to Providence. Shirts at St. Louis. I we've talked about him already. I don't know that you can get him just because of the financial aspect of things. And let's be honest, LSU's paying a lot of money to a lot of people. They got Kelly's contract, whatever amount of that they're paying that off. They're paying Lane, they're paying the football team, they're paying their women's basketball coach. Kim Mulkey makes a lot. She's one of the highest paid women coaches. But I say all that to say, my favorite choice for LSU would be Hoiberg from Nebraska. Granted, he's from that area. He may not even talk to you.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be a hell of a get, but I don't think there's any way in hell that he would go to LSU. I mean,
I don't think they could put the financial aspect together. Now I
no.
say that they spent money.
Hoiberg has skins. I mean, this dude was an NBA player. He was an NBA coach. He's coached and had success at Iowa State. Obviously, he's coached and have success at Nebraska. So this dude knows what he's doing. I just don't think he looks at LSU and looks at Nebraska and says, "What can I make LSU so much bigger? Does Louisiana have this like crazy deep basketball, base? Because Nebraska doesn't, obviously, but neither does Louisiana. But I think Hoiberg is a coach that, like the Iowa State coach, he's a coach that looks for a certain type of kid that he wants to play for him. He doesn't necessarily need the high 5-star. He's not a Calipari or a Patino. He's not a star chaser. He gets guys that fit his system and turns that into what he wants them to be. Which I love that approach.
Yeah, he does. He gets a skilled player that can shoot and pass. Now, interesting thing to me about LSU basketball historically, there's not been a lot of good players out of the state recently, but when they had their last Final Four team, I think all their starters were from Louisiana. Baylor, when they won the national championship, had starters on their team from Louisiana. Historically, Louisiana, between New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and North Louisiana, has had good basketball players. The thing that you got to do, though, if you're the head coach of LSU, you got to keep all those guys in the state. It's not a state that like Texas. Texas is going to have 20 guys that can play, and 30 that can start, from their high school. Louisiana might have 5 a year that can start at the D1 Power 5 level, maybe 3 to 5. So you got to keep those. Another thing, historically, you got to recruit Jackson, Mississippi in that area. And I think LSU could do that with the right coach. And again, going back to Will Wade, he has recruited well. When he was there previously, they did win the conference regular season one year. They did make the tournament. He did recruit well. And I think, I don't think there's any doubt he'll recruit well. Yeah. He knows talent. I give him credit for those things.
He has never been anybody that he's never been a coach that I've never watched LSU play basketball under Will Wade and said, we won that game because Wade outcoached, insert coach's name here. That's never happened. He just, I don't know, that last year he was at LSU. I don't even know what you would, what term you'd use to describe his offense. It looked like he just rolled the balls out and said, "Go get them, boys." It's and a lot of players like that. Players like to play in a undisciplined offense, if you will, because it gives them free reign to one-on-one take people off the dribble and stuff a lot more. But it doesn't win you a lot of basketball games, or win championships anyway.
He runs a lot of sets, and he prides himself on his ability to get good shots off what he does with his sets offensively. So, Sophie, he got to calm her down. So the ring alarm went off. So he 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 prides himself off what he can do offensively. And when he's had talent, he's been really good offensively. But again, that goes without being said. Again, he will have talent. He had Naz Reid, Mays, and different players at LSU. He had some talent. He had several guys that ended up in the NBA off of those, his few years there. So, um, again, much better coach than what they've got. I just wish that they would take a search. And I guess I would say this: it's not going to upset me if they end up with Will Wade
Me either.
because he's going to win and he's going to do things there. So it's not going to upset me if they end up with Will Wade. I just wish they would do a comprehensive search and maybe see who they could get within that. So
I agree, and and that's my thing is I'm not anti Will Wade. I'm just looking at the situation and saying, is he the best we can do? Because if he is, then let's go get him and and try to do what we can. I just don't know that he is, and if you say um, you've got a guy a mid major guy who looks to be an up and comer or something. I honestly probably would be more in tune with doing that than going back to the Will Wade well again. But um, like I said, if he gets in and we make the tournament, 3 out of 5 years, I guess LSU people are happy, and we might maybe get into a Sweet 16. I mean, it's expectations and managing them, and I just don't have any expectations for the program uh, because there's no reason to. I mean, we don't have a lot of talent. We don't have the coaches to develop them, and we don't have the support from the university either. Let's be honest. The university hasn't done all they can to make LSU basketball successful. I know that there's money there, and that people will spend for the right coach, and that coach in this case is Wade, because he's from the basketball money people, he is the guy that they want. So I think gosh, I don't know. I just wish that LSU would, like you said, do a comprehensive search and actually, have some other names out there besides just Will Wade or bringing McMahon back. And let me, I don't know how you bring McMahon back at this point.
no.
Even if it's not Wade, I don't know how you bring him back.
Well, so just from a sheer money standpoint, people say, well, do you have the money to get rid of McMahon? LSU's leaving a lot of money on the table in basketball. A lot of money on the table in basketball. I think that's the biggest thing that no one talks about. There's two sports on every campus that should make money for colleges, and that's football and that's basketball. Again, if you're in the SEC, there's no reason that you're not making money in both those sports. And if LSU makes the NCAA tournament, they're going to make money. Ticket sales, TV revenue, the tournament money that you get. Of course, the SEC splits a lot of that. But again, if you make the tournament and those type of things, you're going to make money. And right now LSU's not. So it might take $10 million to pay McMahon and that staff off, but there's no reason you're not making $10 million a year in college hoops. So to me, that's a quick turnaround, no brainer. You hire the right coach and you make money. And from that standpoint, I think if you hire Will Wade, you're going to do that. Again, I would rather see a search, but I think if you hire Wade, you immediately start making money in the program again. LSU had some decent players this year. If somehow you can hold on to a couple of them, and Wade's proved that he can do well in the portal. Again, boy, the SEC is tough, though. Year one might be a challenge, but by year two, if he gets them in the tournament, if they can get in the tournament consistently, they can make money. To me, that part's a no-brainer. You mentioned the governor a minute ago. I think it's a very Louisiana type thing. The fact that you have the governor that played a large role in the football situation, and Kelly leaving and hiring Kiffin, throwing getting the money and people together with Bert Josbury, and then the same thing is going to happen in basketball between the school president being appointed by the governor and the connections and all that, and the governor's definitely played a big role in this. If they do end up with Wade, and I think they will, Landry's gonna. I guess his whole reelection will be about LSU sports and what he's doing for that. Forget the state.
And,
Um,
and if LSU's winning, he will get reelected.
that's right. He will. Um, so again, I think you've got to do something. To your point about it, man, you're leaving too much money on the table, and you finished dead last 2 years in a row. Just not there. I think he's a good guy, and he's had some injuries. But again, at some point, and he lost a lot of close games. At some point, you got to win some of them.
I mean, listen, all losing a bunch of close games shows is that you can't win close games. I mean, that's
Right.
it's nice. It's nice if you're an up and coming program or you're young or whatever, and you're saying, hey, we're building towards something. Shit, we just can't win. I mean, we're not building towards anything. We just can't win.
So Florida's a 6-point game right now, 55-49, 11 minutes to go. They were down 12 just a couple of minutes ago. Again, making a little run, but that being said, you don't want to take this game deep waters and be trailing Iowa in the last 5 or 6 minutes. You're going to make that very tough to win. The pace of the game, obviously, is Iowa's controlled it. Arizona's 27-18, 27-20. This Florida game is going to be interesting to watch in the last 10 minutes. Ooh, they just scored again. It's 55-51, so Florida's made it a 4-point game. So they definitely are making a run here.
Should be a good one. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think that's it. We picked our Final Four again. I would go. Well, we were in the middle of picking our Final Four. I would go Houston, Duke, Michigan, Arizona would be my Final Four.
Let's see. Let me just look at my bracket to make it. So.
And that's 3 number ones, I guess, for me. Wow. But again, I've felt all year that the number ones were dominant, and I think
they went chalk last year, so it's not like it's something that doesn't doesn't.
And I just think that the top 5 teams, throw Houston in that. I think those 5 teams are heads and shoulders better than most. Again, upsets can happen. Teams lose games, but
so I have Florida. Florida, Arizona, Florida, Arizona, Duke, and Iowa State.
I like the Iowa State pick there, even though I like Michigan. And I would say one more team, if I was going to pick a team that could knock somebody off that we have, we talked about Houston, talked about Iowa State. Give me Michigan State, and I know you've said the same thing too.
Yep.
If anybody's going to knock Duke off out of the Final Four, Michigan State would be I would roll with there. So, but no, that pretty much is it. Wraps it up. We went right about an hour, a little longer tonight, but again, great weekend of basketball. Tuesday we'll talk SEC baseball, and we will definitely get into a Sweet 16 episode 2, whether that's Tuesday, Wednesday, or we may even try to do a Monday, Tuesday again this week. But we will have some of SEC baseball recap, and then we will also do a Sweet 16 preview.
Yeah, we haven't forgotten about baseball. We're just with the Sweet 16 and March Madness, you've got to donate a few weeks to that specifically if you're a sports fan. And a lot going on, but greatest time of the year. Love it. Love it.
Like, subscribe, poke fun at us, make crazy comments,
participate. say bad things, whatever. Just be a part of the show.
That's right. That's it. Thank everybody, and have everybody have a great evening. Enjoy the hoops this week.
Have a great week.